There's a solid reason that circuses and sideshows make their appearance every Halloween and star in everything from horror movies to a season of American Horror Story. Circuses are creepy. But the old-fashioned circuses of history were more than just spooky. They were, well, downright dangerous and often dehumanizing. Performers like acrobats and daredevils risked their lives daily, and tragically, some didn't make it. Meanwhile, sideshow attractions, including oddities and even human zoos, showcased a level of exploitation that's considered unthinkable today. In this video, we're uncovering 15 of the creepiest, most disturbing acts in circus history. And if you are the type of person who gets creeped out easily, please watch MrBeast videos instead. Number 15. Death-defying dives. Falling from a height of under 30 feet gives you about a 3 out of 4 chance of survival. Fall from 40 feet or so, and it's a coin toss. But fall from 60 feet or higher. You'd better start praying for a miracle. Now imagine diving from over 100 feet. Not into deep, cushioned waters, but into a shallow pool barely 8 feet deep. Sounds insane, right? That was the life of shallow divers in old circuses, where the stakes were as high as the dives themselves. Performers like Roy Franson became kings, pushing the limits of human endurance and precision. In the 1930s and 1940s, Franson amazed audiences by not only surviving these dangerous stunts, but also adding fire to his dives for extra drama. His most daring feat? Well, a 110-foot plunge into a pool so shallow it defied belief. But this wasn't a safe profession, and it came at a cost. In 1985, during one of his best dives, he lost his life. Shallow diving may have wowed crowds, but not the laws of physics. Number 14. Human cannonballs. It's exactly what it sounds like. A human squeezes into a cannon, gets blasted through the air, and hopes to land safely over 100 feet away. The human cannonball act has been a staple of circus spectacles for over a century, thrilling audiences with its mix of danger, drama, and sheer absurdity. In the early days, cannons were spring-powered, but tech ripened to use compressed air, launching performers higher and farther. To amp up the excitement, pyrotechnics were often added, making the act as visually spectacular as it was perilous. But the risks were staggering. Even with good calculations, human and mechanical errors made each performance surprising and deadly. One of the earliest human cannonballs, Zazelle, tragically missed her landing and broke her back. More recently, in 2011, a performer died when their safety net failed. While it is a daring act, we think we can all agree that being shot out of a cannon is not the safest career choice. Number 13. Human zoos, a dark chapter in history. When we think about zoos, monkeys, lions, or hippos often come to mind. But in the early 20th century, some zoos had exhibits that were far more disturbing: humans. That's right, people, often Africans or indigenous individuals, were caged and put on display like animals, all for the sake of entertainment. This practice wasn't limited to circuses. Even big zoos participated in this appalling spectacle. The Cincinnati Zoo once kept 100 Sioux Native Americans in a fabricated village for 3 months, turning their lives into a grotesque exhibit. In 1906, the Bronx Zoo in New York City displayed Otabenga, a Congolese pygmy, in the primate exhibit. He was forced to carry chimps and weave baskets alongside orangutans, labeled as the missing link by eugenicists like William Hornaday. Though deeply disturbing today, this cruel form of amusement was felt normal at the time. Human zoos serve as a haunting reminder of the pervasive racism and exploitation of the past, reflecting a society that viewed certain groups as less than human. Number 12. The deadly art of sword swallowing. Nowadays, there are tons of people who can swallow phones, keys, hairballs, and someone's life or wife, but let's focus on the swords for now. Sword swallowing might look like a neat party trick, but it's a horrifyingly dangerous act that takes years or decades of training and mastery over the body's anatomy. For seasoned performers, sliding sharp blades down their throats becomes second nature. But here's the bizarre twist. Some didn't stop at swords. They pushed the boundaries, swallowing live snakes, eating fire, and even crunching on glass for the ultimate shock factor. The risks, as you'd imagine, were sky high. Take famed sword swallower Hannibal Helmerto, who tried to up the ante by swallowing a neon rod powered by electricity. The stunt ripped a hole in his windpipe, landing him in the hospital for weeks. So sure, it's very impressive, but one wrong move in this chillingly creepy art form can turn a showstopper into a life-stopper. Number 11. The perilous art of tightrope walking. Tightrope walking, first devised by the Greeks, is one of the most daring and dangerous circus acts. Over the years, it became a highlight of shows featuring jaw-dropping stunts like the flying Walenda's infamous 7-person pyramid performed without a safety net. The risks, however, were devastatingly real. During one performance, the pyramid collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 2 performers and leaving another paralyzed. Tragedy struck the Walenda family a lot of times, including in 1978 when Carl fell to his death while walking a cable between 2 high-rise buildings. The thrill of walking on rope eventually flared beyond the circus. Daredevils sought out extreme locations to showcase their skill. Freddie Knock, for instance, took the challenge to new heights, walking over a mile on a cable car wire almost 10,000 feet above sea level. Without any safety gear, his only allies were his balance stick, sheer will, and nerves of steel. In this breathtaking yet deadly pursuit, one misstep can mean the difference between triumph and tragedy. Number 10. Deformed fetuses and other oddities displayed in jars. If you thought freak shows were the pinnacle of creepy, think again. Enter the world of pickled punks. Yes, that's what they called them. Deformed fetuses and other oddities preserved in jars for everyone's morbid curiosity. While the idea of gawking at jarred specimens sounds absurd today, it was a hot sideshow attraction in the 1950s and 60s. These displays weren't just bizarre, they were controversial. Law enforcement frequently clamped down on traveling shows, forcing some to use fake remains to keep their act alive. What's even weirder is that people paid to stare at these jars, marveling at what was essentially biology's greatest missteps. Thankfully, this unsettling form of entertainment has gone extinct, but some specimens have found their way into research labs and museums, where they're at least teaching us something useful. The lesson? Sometimes curiosity really can kill the cat, or at least make it deeply uncomfortable. Number 9. Acrobats took death-defying risks 50 feet above. Acrobats in the early 20th century weren't just performers, they were daredevils with a penchant for flirting with danger and death. Take Lillian Leitzel, for example. Known as the Queen of Aerial Gymnasts, she performed stunts so extreme that her body didn't just defy gravity, it defied anatomy. Her signature move? Flipping head over heels on a ring so quickly that her shoulder would dislocate with every turn, only to snap back into place like some bizarre party trick. Audiences loved her, but the risks caught up in 1931 when a faulty piece of equipment sent her plummeting 50 feet. Tragically, she died 2 days later. Her story is a reminder that back then, safety nets weren't a thing for acrobats. Pride and showmanship were. And if you thought your workday was tough, imagine risking life and limb just to keep a crowd entertained. Number 8. Trapeze artists risked it all, even with nets. Trapeze artists are the reason why flying through the air became synonymous with circus magic. These daring performers didn't just swing around, they launched themselves into the void, trusting their hands, their timing, and sometimes a flimsy net. But even the net wasn't always a savior. If you landed the wrong way, it could mean broken bones, or worse. Lena Jordan, an 18-year-old trapeze prodigy, pushed the limits in 1897 when she pulled off the first ever triple somersault. Italians who had seen everything even named the stunt salto mortale, or the deadly leap. Because honestly, if you've got to name a trick that, maybe it's a sign to rethink it. Regardless, trapeze artists were the rock stars of their time, captivating audiences with each death-defying swing. Just imagine trusting your coworker to catch you mid-air. These performers made office trust exercises look like child's play. Now let's talk about Number 7. Knife throwers tested trust and precision. Knife throwing is equal parts precision, trust, and sheer madness. The idea of standing still while someone hurls sharp objects at you might sound like the worst team-building exercise ever, but for circus performers, it was just another day at work. And then came the wheel of death, because of course the stakes needed to be higher. Assistants were strapped to a spinning wheel as knives were thrown around them with pinpoint accuracy, or so you'd hope. The Gibsons, a husband and wife act, took things even further with the veiled wheel of death. In this version, Mrs. Gibson was tied to the wheel and covered with paper, leaving her husband to aim blindly. Now that's trust. It's hard to decide what's more nerve-wracking, the actual knife throwing or the inevitable marital arguments after a close call. One thing's for sure, this was not your typical date night. Number 6. Strong men and women. In the golden age of circuses, strong men were the epitome of raw power and spectacle, and yes, strong women too. These performers didn't just lift weights, they turned feats of strength into jaw-dropping entertainment. Some even used humans as their weight of choice. One standout was Signor Lawanda, the iron-jawed man, who lifted barrels filled with water and men, using only his teeth. His most legendary feat? Hoisting a 400-pound horse, a stunt that caught the eye of circus legend P.T. Barnum. But it wasn't just brute strength that made these acts legendary. It was the creativity. From bending steel bars to lifting cars, strong men and women found ever more astonishing ways to wow the crowd. Their acts combined showmanship, spectacle, and a touch of the absurd, creating a legacy that still inspires fitness enthusiasts and performers today. Number 5. The Wall of Death. The Wall of Death sounds like something straight out of an action movie, but it's a real and utterly terrifying circus act. Performers on motorcycles or in small cars race around the walls of a giant cylinder using centrifugal force to stick to the sides. First popularized in the 1920s, this act pushes the limits of both physics and nerves. Early versions were even more dangerous, featuring less sloped walls and mile-long tracks where riders and spectators occasionally met tragic ends. Samantha Morgan, a pioneer Wall of Death rider, performed well into the 2000s, but suffered fatal complications from injuries sustained over the years. Despite its risks, the Wall of Death remains a thrilling spectacle today, combining speed, skill, and sheer daring. Number 4. Animal trainers. For over 200 years, animal trainers captivated audiences by taming lions, tigers, and elephants. Acts like these were the ultimate man versus beast showdown, showcasing trainers' ability to control fearsome predators. Clyde Beatty, a legendary lion tamer, wielded a whip and a chair, relying on these tools to keep himself alive while thrilling audiences. But even the most skilled trainers couldn't always predict the instincts of their animals. Beatty, like many tamers, kept a pistol on hand, just in case. Unfortunately, the animals were often the real victims. Captured from the wild or bred in captivity, they lived in cramped cages and were subjected to harsh training methods. Their confinement and mistreatment led to aggression, making performances even riskier. Thankfully, public outcry has led to significant changes. Many countries now ban live animal performances, ensuring a more humane future for the majestic creatures that once graced the big top. Number 3. Elephant acts. Elephants have always been a symbol of the circus, but their acts carried risks for everyone involved. These huge animals, capable of crushing trainers, were known for their unpredictable behavior. In one infamous incident, an elephant killed its trainer and rampaged through Honolulu in 1994. In 1956, 42 elephants stampeded while being herded to a railway car, causing chaos and destruction. However, the real tragedy lies in how elephants were treated. Captured or bred in captivity, they endured lives of confinement, poor care, and harsh training. These conditions often made them aggressive, creating a vicious cycle of mistreatment and danger. In recent years, protests and lawsuits have highlighted the cruelty behind elephant acts. Ringling Brothers retired their elephants in 2018, marking a turning point in circus history. While these acts entertained millions, their legacy is a stark reminder of the ethical costs of such performances. Number 2. Fire breathing. Fire breathing is as dangerous as it looks, and possibly more. This daring circus act involves performers spraying flammable liquids, such as kerosene or alcohol-based fuels, from their mouths into a fine mist, which is then ignited by a handheld torch. If that sounds risky, it's because it absolutely is. Even experienced fire breathers face countless hazards every time they perform. The dangers? For starters, the flame can blow back into the performer's mouth, causing severe burns. Inhaling the fuel can lead to chemical pneumonia, and accidental ingestion risks poisoning. And it's not just the performers at risk. The audience and surroundings can easily catch fire if a flame suddenly shifts in direction. Despite its obvious risks, fire breathing remains a popular act, captivating crowds with its spectacle. But it is creepy. Number 1. Aerial acts. Gravity always wins. Aerial acts are the epitome of grace and talent, but make no mistake, they're also one of the most dangerous circus staples. Whether it's trapeze artists soaring through the air or hair-hanging acrobats twirling high above, these performances require precision, strength, and an unwavering trust in safety equipment. Unfortunately, when things go wrong, the results can be catastrophic. Take, for instance, the tragic fall of a trapeze artist in California in 2007 who plummeted 40 feet without a net. Or the 2013 incident in Moscow, where a performer fell 85 feet but miraculously survived. The 2014 accident in Rhode Island saw 8 hair-hanging aerialists crash to the ground after a clip failed, leaving them with life-altering injuries. These acts may dazzle audiences, but they're also a sobering reminder of the risks performers take to defy gravity. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.